Hey, what's up everyone? Boktai here with Zivix and Kaje-san, and today we want to talk about the new Destiny 2 raid, Vow of the Disciple. First, I'm going to say this video is going to contain spoilers, so if you haven't done the raid or experienced it in some form, go do that now, then come back to this video. But we highly suggest you go do it now and then come back to this video after actually having the raid experience. Don't just go watch somebody play it. Actually go do it yourself. Hello, boys.
Hi. Hello. Existential crisis.
Right. So, first up, let me say, holy crap. Out of all the raids that I have personally done, this raid totally blew my mind. From like the initial entering the raid location via that big gate, it was very reminiscent of Jurassic Park and the grandeur of the big gate opening in the movie, if you guys remember that. Like, it's like the open the gate and then it's like, da-na-na-na-na. Like, that's how it felt from the moment we started on this raid.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. Like, honestly, can we do it again? Because that's all I've been thinking about this whole week is just getting back into this raid because of how, like, you started off the first time and it's like, oh, this is really cool. There's a lot to do. And then you miss shit. And there's stuff that you need to go back and go see.
I just want to go do it again because the encounters are really fun. I've rarely ever, like,
yeah, that's true,
dreamed, not really dreamed, but wanted to go back in and just do a boss fight again, just to do it. And that boss fight just feels so good.
That's right. Like, literally from the beginning, you get smacked in the face with like the scale and the location of this raid. And to even get to like that first encounter, it feels like you're making your way into the raid instead of like in the past we've experienced, like you just load in and then you walk like a little bit and you're at the first encounter. Like, you actually had to earn your way into the raid location. And it was just amazing. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but Bungie has actually gotten a lot better at this over the years with the last few raids we've seen. You feel more immersed when you're going into the raid from the very beginning.
Yeah, you get a sense of scale like right off the bat. Usually they ramp it up, but right at the beginning you're like, oh, this is crazy. And then it's like that, it goes even past that, which is pretty crazy because they start you off, they smack you in the face with scale, and then it just gets increasingly bigger scale until the very end that has huge.
Yeah, they just keep ramping up until you hit that final boss battle. Like, the whole scale, it's not just like the lore aspect is pretty big on what's going on, but it's also just like the encounter, because like, one, you're inside the pyramid ship and you get to see, hey, this thing is a lot bigger than I remember.
That is true. Like, there was multiple times I found, like, through the raid, even working up to the first encounter, that I as a player actually felt dwarfed by like the pyramid architecture and everything. And I had to take a moment and just look around at the storytelling and the level design that the Bungie dev team was doing here.
I think it's also like, I know a lot of other people have been saying this, like, you know, on Twitter, Reddit, that kind of stuff. And I didn't really like notice it until someone pointed it out to me. How the fuck does all that stuff fit in there? Like, it feels like you're in a Mary Poppins kind of situation where the interior of it is way bigger than the exterior. Because ain't no way that whole city fits in that pyramid ship. There's no way.
You definitely have some like Doctor Who-esque, like the TARDIS, it's bigger on the inside than it is on the outside, like vibe going on with the pyramid ships.
Yeah.
And I'm here for it.
Let's say, I mean, it is the darkness. They can kind of do whatever they want.
So all I can say here is bravo, Bungie. Well done. I don't think there wasn't a moment any of us were actually not interested in the storytelling, in the environment that was happening, and just literally in all of the scale of everything that was going on in the raid.
There were multiple times where I think almost everyone in the team, we had one guy that had finished it before all of us, but I think all of us that had gone in together and was doing it for the first time together, there were multiple times where we were all just like, what the fuck is going on? Or like at the final boss fight, it was just a bunch of us just going, what the fuck? It was really great.
It was. I mean, honestly, there was times that I even stopped and just had to look around at everything. And like going to the first encounter, the raid actually does a very good storytelling of both creation and destruction via like all of the scientific cross sections of the worms. And then almost like, if you recall, like walking along the walls, like things, I pictured them in my head when I was seeing them, of like Han Solo in the carbonite up on Jabba Hutt's wall.
I had that same vibe too.
There's a lot of good minute detail everywhere.
I also like how they've basically have turned a lot of the enemies and just like characters that we've perceived as like these like all powerful enemies, not that powerful anymore. Not even just because of the people that we fight, but just the fact that we realize that they're also have just been basically manipulated the whole time. We're just like, oh, well, it's not as scary anymore.
Right. Can we talk about on your way to the first encounter, and we'll try not to spoil anything for anybody that hasn't like gone through and experienced it, but the scale of that worm god in the background, holy shit, that is all I can say. I think we all spent like a good 5 minutes just sitting there taking it all in.
Hive worm mommy.
I wonder if they had never introduced us to Zol, like when they did, if they gave that as our first ever look at a worm god.
That'd be fucking wild.
Yeah, I think it would have been crazy, but the fact that we had seen one already, we were, it was less of a like, holy shit, it's a worm god. It was like, who is that? It was like the first thing everyone thought of.
Which worm is that?
I think it would have blown our minds had we not been introduced to Zul back in the Warmine expansion. Yeah, that would have probably been a true like top 10 holy shit moments in Destiny 2.
Also got to introduce that rib bone as well, because that's in that encounter.
Right. And the whole time that you're making your way to the encounters, like as soon as you get into the pyramid, you're being constantly taunted by the voice of Rook, or as we all call him, Milk.
Milky Man.
Like on your way there, and when you get into the first encounter, you're going to be like overwhelmed with all of these symbols. I'm not gonna lie to you, I had flashbacks to Last Wish, like PTSD from running Last Wish all the times we did, trying to memorize every single symbol and come up with a name. But I will say, like, after we got in and we did the first encounter, even during like contest mode, it actually made sense this time. Like it felt like it was a good balance of mechanic and ad waves and communication. It didn't feel like a lot like DSC remembers. If y'all all like think back to the first time that you did DSC and trying to do all that communication with all the different buffs, it felt like Bungie learned from that with the first encounter and made it smoother for your team to communicate. But when you're isolated into like the two little two-man teams, you were able to maintain and rotate properly.
I also prefer the Destiny raids where they don't, like, my problem with Deepstone Crypt was the fact that you were actually hardlocked to a role. Like the game actually gave you a role. And I like the raids that are very open-ended and people kind of come up with their own roles. I prefer it that way compared to like Bungie being like, okay, these are what you got to do because the game makes you do it. Like it's like a little hand-holdy, if that makes sense.
And I will admit this, I think every team I've watched do the raid in some form or fashion has come up with their own unique names for all the different symbols. And I know we had some very interesting names as a fire team when we were going through it.
And then I saw on Reddit some team called their kill nipple piercing.
Jeez.
and then
you can't forget about Asplane for Ascended Plane.
Yeah, we in our chat we didn't want to type out Ascended Plane, so we just defaulted to Asplane, and it made sense. It was easier to type out.
Asplane.
Some people call Blackheart in Utah.
I've heard Colorado too. Colorado's a longer word, but I'd prefer Utah in that case.
The other thing, I think someone did bring up actually a really good point that kill is too universal, so that's why a lot of people have come up with different like names like steak and nipple piercing, because saying kill, like if you say kill Blackheart, you're like, what? Because most of the time you're like, I kill.
Right. My thought process is like, what do I need to DPS? What do I got to destroy?
So a lot of people have been kind of doing their own thing.
So speaking of killing things, let's talk about the second encounter when you meet the Caretaker, who is a scorn abomination created by Daddy Milk. To me, this encounter was extremely engaging, and I felt like it was a perfect balance of mechanics, but also that time rush, that time sensitive that you've got to get this done. There is another encounter that we're going to talk about in a minute that will literally have your butthole puckering the entire time as you're trying to race against the clock, balance relics, and read symbols, all while trying to figure out what to do. But let's get back. I digress to the caretaker encounter. It's actually a good chance, like if you like the glaive with the stunning mechanic that you have to do on the caretaker, it's a really good time for that glaive to shine if you have a player that feels comfortable for doing it. And I think Kaj, you and I were on the stun team, and the second time we ran through it, I was running the glaive to kind of use for the bait, and it was perfect because you could run up with the glaive, you shoot a few mobs so you get the shield charge, pop up the shield to bait him to slam, and when he slammed, you didn't get knocked back or anything because the shield negated it. And then you and I had those stuns on like lock. Like we still kept him down, I think if I recall, like the bottom of the platform before the DPS phase even started.
Yeah, I don't even think we got him anywhere up near the stairs at all. I think the closest we had was just the base of the stairs.
Which is also nice because we get that actual boosted DPS.
Right. I love that. I love that we could do that. And speaking of DPS, did you guys not have flashbacks to the Callus plate DPS phases in the old Leviathan raid?
A little bit, yeah. I can see it when you have to rotate the plates.
I thought more of Morgeth with y'all. Y'all didn't play Destiny 1. Not Morgeth, Golgoroth. Golgoroth was the OG. This boss sucks. Not sucks because it's bad, but sucks because it's hard as fuck. It was very similar to that in terms of you've had very short limited times of DPS, but it wasn't as, it was in between doing Golgoroth and Callus. Like it was faster paced than Callus, but it wasn't as fast paced as Golgoroth. Because Golgoroth, you only had like 15, 20 seconds. I think, I don't remember. It's been a long time, but you had a very short amount of time for DPS is what I remember. And then Callus, you had a whole like 30, 40 seconds of just like,
if you were fast enough, you could pump it out.
I think that's also where the difference between it comes in, is that really the only mechanic you had to worry about with Callus is like
get off the plate after you start that phase before you blow up.
Yeah, and he never really, he really only did like one attack when like Caretaker and Golgoroth were doing like their normal like ad attacks that happen with those like that enemy in the base game, and that's just cranked up to 11 and it hurts a lot.
I can honestly say though, the second encounter of all the encounters is probably the second encounter I enjoyed the most.
Yeah. And
we'll get to the one I think I agree with you boys on what the best encounter was, but the second one is definitely up there for me. And for what it was, Bungie tends to do this, in a lot of like MMOs tend to do this for like a second encounter on a raid. It's usually like a DPS check. It's a DPS race. How fast can you do it? And I think Bungie actually kind of did very well with this one.
My only complaint with that encounter is the fact that as of right now, there is no way to just go in and just like insta kill it and then go. But I understand why they didn't do that. I do like the fact that sometimes you, like with Morgeth on Last Wish, you actually had to do mechanics when it first came out, but then by like the 6th week after Last Wish was out, it was just like, okay, let's stack behind him, let's just kill him.
Throw the well down, shotgun, sleeper, done.
I don't like time like damage gating, but this was definitely done a better way than just like, oh, you can't damage him anymore, he's immune. It was like there was a mechanic behind it that made sense instead of like, oh, white shield, can't shoot him.
And I think that's what made it feel like that perfect balance of mechanics and time sensitivity, because even if you were like super fast with the DPS and bounced around plates to get to the next DPS phase after you moved floors and the boss respawned, it was really up to your like symbol reading team how fast they could go in and out and grab their symbols and recognize them on the totems to get back to the next DPS phase. It wasn't beholden, like you said, to, oh, like Spire of Stars, now we're going to throw up a shield around the ball, so now you got to do all this bullshit to get back to the DPS phase.
And it wasn't as punishing as like Shuro-Chi was, because you remember how Shuro-Chi was also like that, and if you just didn't hit your mark on Shuro-Chi, you just wiped. It was
Yep,
just,
you wiped and restarted.
yeah. You can actually recover with this. So like a good team can nut up and shut up and then actually get it done instead of like Shrochi. If you don't hit your mark, it's like, oh well, we got to restart all over again. Doesn't matter where you're at.
I was not expecting our team to go in there and fucking roll face like we did.
We rolled face on that one.
Even during contest mode, like we had that already figured out. Even though we were hitting the brick wall, everybody was getting tired and it was time to go to bed, we already had it figured out. It was literally, we just needed a few more tries at it and we would have had it. Also, I forgot to mention to everyone, as you're making your way through the raid, and this is something I love that Bungie did, that big red orange glowy thing in the background above the worm god's mouth, that is eventually where you're going to go for the boss fight. Like that amazing storytelling. And the reason I mentioned that is you see it on your way to the third encounter and you're going to see it after the third encounter, like as you're working your way through the raid. I love when storytelling is done like that via the environment. And I know I'm gushing on all that, but as a game nerd, that makes me excited.
I was gonna say, and the other thing is that there's no like teleporting or anything like that. You're just walking around exploring. So the entire area for the whole raid is just one continuous run. So you can see where you're going, and that's the scale.
Yeah, it's very, very Last Wish in that way, because Last Wish was the same way.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. It's like Bungie took a page out of their own playbook from when the success of Forsaken. Because that's honestly what all of Witch Queen feels like. It feels like Forsaken 2.0. It's like they took all the good things they did in Forsaken and put it in and just made it better. But again, this video is about the raid. So we're going to dive on into the third encounter. OMFG, that's all I'm going to say. This encounter will truly test your team's ability to multitask. If you can multitask, you're in for one of the most like head against the wall experiences in a raid encounter that I think you would ever be up against. Because like I said before, you're literally balancing reading, running, jumping, killing ads, balancing relics,
Reddit.
and more.
Yeah, balancing
Getting your
Reddit.
Reddit gold.
Oh, and you know the worst thing about it all? You're very, very extremely limited on time to do this.
Right.
So just run.
There's a lot of mechanics in that one. I think that one's probably one of the more mechanic heavy encounters in the whole raid. I mean, Rolk himself wasn't so bad, but I think that the relic room was probably one of the hardest ones to get through.
I personally, it's my least favorite. I don't hate it, but I also like if they had done something else, I would have been happy. Like I don't like it as much.
The only way you're going to make it through this and basically get this encounter on farm, because I think this will make or break a lot of like being able to put the raid on farm, is with your raid team. You have to figure out the balance of the relic rotation. Who's good at what with which relics. And once you get that kind of figured out among your raid team, it'll unlock and you'll zoom through it.
That's going to be the LFG killer is the third encounter. Like that's going to be where people get stuck and then they rage quit and then they leave. And then they go back and they're like looking for one more. That's definitely going to be that one, because I think also inflated egos are going to make that encounter awful. But
You have people who are gonna like assign themselves to a relic, and that's all they're gonna want to do.
yeah, that one you really have to be flexible, like you said, and just like move people around that need moved, because sometimes it's just not going to work out.
Oh yeah.
Like somebody it's just not their role. Like I know when the thing that made us click was moving Yukaj to nut and meet a shield on that one section, because after moving to the shield on that one, yeah, that middle part is really rough to jump around on.
Very, very rough. Yeah, I'd ran shield originally, and it was, yeah.
And I can do it so pretty confidently, and nut was working better for you on that one than
just point and click.
Yeah. So it was it stuff like that's gonna have to happen, and some people just aren't gonna want to do it. You'll be like, no, I'm doing this, and so it's just gonna be a pain in the butt.
I didn't know we let the Destiny LFG Discord
We
in
don't
here.
talk about them here.
Looking for 2 more. No hunters allowed. Must have day 1 raid emblem in 400 clears already. I'm telling it's for those of you guys who don't know, literally Destiny 2 PCLFG will kick you if you're a hunter. It's stupid.
And speaking of stupid, as a Warlock main, I'm only going to say this. Fuck that jumping puzzle. That's all I'm gonna say.
That was fun.
That is where I
As a
shine,
Titan,
buddy.
That was fun.
Oh, I do want to make a comment on it. When we ran through the puzzle, I found out that it's actually very easy to open the doors for that last bit, and we were just missing it completely.
Look,
Yeah.
we won't talk about the like 40 minutes we spent trying to find out how to get to the boss room because none of us wanted to look up a guide till the very last minute.
That's very true. We were trying to cheese it the whole way, and people were just flying around the side, and when in reality there was just one thing we had to do to open the doors. That was it. The final boss was trying to figure out how those damn doors open.
So, speaking of the final boss, let's talk about the best bit of the raid. That true final boss encounter with Mr. Rourke himself. First, Mr. Milk. Let me say this. Mr. Milk has some major step on me, please energy.
Mr. Milk.
He's got the anime girl kick. Great.
Yeah, he does.
That is definitely
Dainty
my
feet.
favorite boss that they've ever made. It's so good.
Agreed.
And
It's
gonna be
incredible,
so
yeah.
hard to beat that bar.
Like the boss design they did here is truly like nothing we've ever seen to this point, in my opinion. The only other boss that I can think that even came to like that holy shit moment in Destiny 2 would be when we saw Riven for the very first time.
I think lore-wise, Riven. I think mechanic-wise, I think honestly, I always forget his name. Crown of Sorrow's final boss was probably at least on contest mode was on par with like this is hard as fuck until you fully grasp it, and then you're like, oh, this is actually really easy.
And speaking of that, actually this boss encounter is not that complicated compared to even like the third encounter in the raid.
Yeah, we nailed it super fast. Like we got it by like the third wipe. It was we had it on farm.
I was gonna say third or fourth run, and we ended up getting it
Yeah.
like in one go.
Exactly, because all the boss encounter really boils down to is using the established symbol calling system that you have, and you're just now going to introduce just a buff balance, and that's it. That's literally all that's being added in the boss fight. A lot of us that have played like other MMO and MMORPGs like FF14, this boss fight felt very akin to like a FF14 raid or dungeon boss.
You can tell what kind of gamer they are because they'll say, "Oh, it felt like a Dark Souls boss," or like, "Oh, it felt like an FF boss." You can tell what they've played just from what they say the boss was like. Because I think it does feel like both. He's got his attacks. His attacks get
I can see
does.
it. Yeah.
graphed like a FF boss, but I feel like the attacks seem more like a Dark Souls boss and like its animation.
Very, very much so. But it also feels very well grounded into the universe that Bungie has crafted for Destiny. And I think that's what makes us, especially like the DPS phase when you go up to the platform where you're actually having to like dodge his attacks with the telegraphs and everything, is what made it feel unique, because I can't think of another raid that has actually made us have to do that while moving around to DPS. Because if you look at a lot of previous Bungie raids for Destiny 2, it's literally, okay, we're the DPS phase, stack on the well, let's DPS our hearts out, instead of like, okay, we got to move around and do this and move around and do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fact we didn't even have to use a well in this one. Well, we actually couldn't use a well because we had to move around so much. It felt a bit refreshing to me because that mechanic that we'd have to do, you can use it in every single raid, and not being able to use that this time was like, oh, okay, now we have to re-strategize a bit.
It actually felt kind of liberating, I'm not gonna lie.
It did.
We went from VOG, which is definition of stand here and shoot, to this, because Vault of Glass is, dated as fuck in terms of mechanics. Because it's their first raid, they didn't really have like their formula down yet. So it is very much stand here and like dump into this boss. And then we went from that to the complete opposite, which I know that they've been trying to figure out the solution to bubble well for a while now, and this is it.
Yeah, I think they
This is the
cracked it. I
solution.
think they did, because if you even look at like DSC, which was the last new raid introduced into Destiny 2, like on Tanix, it was literally, okay, DPS phase, jump in between the two blue circles, drop well and bubble, let's go. That's all it was.
The big blue spicy bubble.
And I will say this, when we got to the final stand, the final stand on this boss, it made you really feel like a badass when you beat him, because like the screen was getting dark from the debuff, and that feeling of elation for beating the raid boss. I actually felt that, and the last time I felt that was the first time we downed Riven.
Legit. Down the Riven legit. We'll point that out. Not sat next to her and
Give her a manicure.
poked at her fingers.
Oh no, we broke her now
until she died. Yeah, no, like we actually did the mechanics.
Honestly, like if Bungie keeps doing this with raids, like this raid for me is like a 20 out of 10 right now, just from the hype level of coming off of clearing it and everything. Like if Bungie keeps doing this and keeps building on it over time, it's going to be amazing. Now, I think what's going to be the defining factor for Val the Disciple is what's the replayability of it. Because after a while, like when a raid gets on farm, it can get very monotonous and boring doing that raid. And it can start to feel a little tedious having to go in and do it each week. So that's kind of what's going to determine like how my rating stays with it. That's honestly like, I want to see more of this, Bungie. Like you've got me hooked back into the game. Give me more raids. Give me more expansions like the Witch Queen.
We're just going to keep talking over. I'll keep going. They're going to have to really wow us, because they've set up the bar a little high with this raid. Because now the next raid, we're probably going to have to do something with the Witness. And that shit better blow me out of the water.
I don't think we'll see Witness until Final Shape.
Yeah, we won't.
Probably going to be something else.
We'll see something in Lightfall for sure.
I'm still thinking Callus for Lightfall.
Yeah, I think most people think Callus is a disciple now, and we're going to see him. We're going to face him in Lightfall.
Imagine if we kill the first disciple in this one, and then Callus, the last disciple.
Because it's not stated that this is the only disciple we'll see.
Ooh.
He
No,
is just
there's
the
been
first
more.
disciple of the Witness.
Yeah, there's Ol or Un or something like that. And then Savathun was being groomed to be one, and Mara was being groomed to be one, and we're pretty positive that Callus is already one. Because his death and Rolk's first death
They are.
very similar in terms of what happened. They both communed with like quote unquote void, and then they woke up and the Witness was like, "Hey man, I got some cool shit. You want it?
Put this on, man."
Yeah, now you just gotta say you're a disciple and you got a cool little pyramid ship.
Look, if I got offered a pyramid ship and some of these powers that these disciples have, fuck the light. I'm going to join the darkness. I'm not gonna lie.
You get a big flying Dorito. You either get a big round boy or a flying Dorito. Which one do you want?
So I can't say this enough, though, for everybody that is watching this video. Take your time with the raid the first time you run it. Like, take in the scenery, the storytelling, the environment. It finally, to me, it feels like Bungie Destiny is getting to that dark eldritch space god kind of story. A lot of us have been craving for the story to go that way. We wanted it to go that way in our imaginations, like how we wanted to see the story unfold, with Savathun actually being introduced to physically in our face. Just keep it up, Bungie. That's all I'm going to say. Just please keep it up. Don't let the ball drop.
Also, I'll be very real. This is not an LFG raid. This is not. I mean, you probably can do it on your LFG, but it's save yourself and go find a group of friends and do it. It's more fun that way.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap up our overall thoughts on the new Destiny 2 raid, Vow of the Disciple. Let us know down in the comments below what you thought about the raid and how well your fire team did this past week with clearing the raid. Did y'all clear it? Did you not clear it? Let us know. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and bell icon on the way out to your next video. That way you can be notified when we put up a new video. Till then, we'll see everyone in the next video.
Bye.